Welcome to the Making Waves at Sea Level podcast with your host, Tom Singer. In each episode, we will explore the interesting stories of business executives, entrepreneurs, and industry leaders who are shaking things up and growing their companies. It is time to make some waves. Now here's your host, Tom Singer.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of Making Waves at Sea Level, formerly the podcast known as Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do. We made that change July 1st because I made some changes in my life, and I'm dealing a lot more with growing teams. As many of you know, I now work for an executive search firm in addition to doing the speaking and training I do for companies around the country. And I wanted to focus more finding out how leaders shake things up in their companies, in their industries, in their communities, and in life. And I think you're going to enjoy today's interview. Today, I'm talking to Jake Dunlap. He is the CEO of a company called Skaled. And what he and his team do is they help organizations build repeatable revenue-producing strategies for their sales operations. And really, I don't care if you're a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, or a business leader of a multinational company, being able to build repeatable revenue-producing strategies is something we all need. So I'm very proud and happy to welcome Jake Dunlap to Making Waves at Sea Level. Hey, Jake.
Hey, Tom. How are you?
I'm doing all right. So welcome to the podcast. I have a habit of not reading those really fancy bios that your PR people write. I'm sure you and your company spend a lot of money coming up with just the right words, and I don't read those.
I think you did a good job. I thought you summed it up pretty well.
Well, so what I like to do is give you kind of a short chance to tell us about Skaled and what it is you do in a little more depth. Go ahead.
Yeah. So again, I'm looking forward to the conversation and talking about how I've made waves at different points in my life and career and now. So really, we are a sales consulting organization. And what that means in less boring terms is we're coming in and partnering with internal leadership. And really our magic sauce is not just the partnering around strategy, but the partnering to actually tactically pull things through. And so when I started the company 7 years ago, my knock on consulting was, this is great. Well, now what do I do with it? And so, we have a mix of technical, strategic, enablement resources to come in and help to solve lead generation, sales, account growth, and operations challenges. And so, usually we're really as a part of the team and really, working to solve tactical problems that drive, 10, 20, 30% increases in, number of leads or revenue.
So how old is the company now?
It'll be eight years old in January. So,
and you started it in New York City in the Soho area. And
that's right.
You moved your headquarters to Austin, Texas, which is where I live.
That's right.
How long ago?
We moved in almost exactly 2 years ago. And
what made you choose Austin?
Well, Austin, I feel like, Austin was already kind of starting the process of blowing up, but I feel like, we were starting to lead this trend too. For us, it was about talent and it was about, cost-effective growth. And I think both, talent, in Austin, I think what a lot of people have started to realize is like the amount of talent here in a variety of creative roles, sales roles is astronomical. There's so many great companies here that are growing and scaling that, the talent pool in Austin is really, matured and grown as well too. And it's a fallacy to think you can only get the best people on the coast. And so it was a mix of cost-effective scaling and amazing talent.
So what did you do before you founded Skaled?
So I was a sales leader. I was a VP of sales at Glassdoor. I built a sales organization there, then moved to New York, was a VP of sales at a startup called Chartbeat and built out the original sales organization there. My background, I've been in sales and sales leadership for the last, almost 17 plus years. So, for me, what I saw was in the startup world in particular, one of the biggest issues is you need very different things at very different stages. And as you grow and as you scale, the needs change from being more strategic one day to more tactical the next to more strategic for 6 months. And then you need someone who's going to get in the weeds. And I consistently saw that sales did not have a support ecosystem like marketing does. There's no expert, on-demand expert network for sales teams. It's like you hire trainers or you hire full-time and then those people churn. And so thought we could help to solve that need.
So you've been in leadership roles then for a long, long time, managing teams, and you've grown this team to about 30 people. What is it that you like about having that role? Why be a C-level leader?
I like that you started here because I have a feeling where we're going to go next. So for me, I love the people development side. There's nothing better than watching individuals rise to the occasion, step up, and really take, ownership and responsibility for their world. And it's literally probably one of my favorite, passions about leadership is really understanding the goals of my team and really helping to remove roadblocks to help them to achieve those goals, whether they're personal or professional. So I really have always viewed that as my role as a leader. My job is to help you to get on your path, whatever that path might be, and help and shepherd you along the way. And that for sure is I think what I love the most.
So I fully understand that, but one of the problems with managing people is it's not one size fits all. So what are some of the hard parts of doing what you love?
Well, candidly, that's the kind of the point of understanding their goals, right? Is that it's about their goals. It's not my goals for them. It's not, this is the path I think you should take. So I think, it's probably like any leader, it's unrealized potential, where sometimes you feel like you want it more for somebody than they want it for themselves. I feel like that's probably, an area I struggle with at times in leading people that might not have as much of a growth mindset as I do.
So I asked you what you liked. What are some of the things you don't like about being the leader, about being the CEO? There's got to be some days you wake up and say, God, I wish I had just continued to work for somebody else.
Payroll, I guess, would be the number one. Look, when you are running your own successful small business, everything is your fault. Everything is your responsibility. So for all the entrepreneurs out there and CEOs of 2-people companies, as you scale and really want to build a business, really know what you're getting yourself into, that, you're signing up to be responsible for all of these people's livelihood. And no matter what, you are responsible if something happens with payroll, with finance, with operations, with a client, it's all you.
Yep. Yeah. The buck stops
I think that can
desk,
be, yeah, that's right. And I think that can be a lot for people if they, bear the brunt of that mentally and they don't create space between themselves and the work at times.
So my background is in sales and then marketing. And then I've worked for myself as that solopreneur, as that one-person shop for 11 years before I joined Stanton Chase in the executive search world. So I fully understand the smaller side of it. I've never managed a big team. But one of my questions is, you specialize in the area of sales, both in what you did. You were a salesman and a sales manager. Now Skaled helps people work on this repeatable revenue strategies. Sales has kind of gotten hit upside the head in the last few months. So both your company and your clients, how has COVID and the pandemic impacted selling?
It's a super question. I mean, what it's really doing is accelerating trends, meaning sales candidly has been pretty lazy for the last 10 years. And what I mean by that is we've just been kind of executing the same plays over and over again, tracking activity metrics and calls and emails. And really with the use of technology, have driven a lot of the creativity and, out of sales teams. Mm-hmm. Salesperson used to, find their own leads, close their own deals, and then manage accounts. Well, when everyone's specialized, that creates a lot of perverse incentives within the organization to not always do what's right for the customer. And what's COVID is forcing us to do is reevaluate our customer journey and really reevaluate the way our teams are interacting and be smarter and less one size fits all and more niche. And the reason I bring that up is, look, there's plenty of organizations that are doing quite well right now. Go look at the stock market. Go look at the stock market. Go look at industries. There's plenty of industries that are doing really well right now. Sales up until now, where I think a lot of leaders have struggled is, it's like they went all in on nobody's interested. And in reality, it's always been this way. There's a group of people that are going to be very interested, a group somewhere in the middle that you might be able to push over the top, and then another group that is in an industry that's not doing so well. That's for forever. But we forgot about that. We went to this one size fits all that everybody was ready. Mm-hmm. And so I think as we come out of the side of this, you're going to see organizations doing more strategies that feel more customized to more segments than ever before, trying to meet the buyer where they are, trying to really go back to understanding the industries, what people sell into versus kind of a one size fits all approach, which I think is the big issue.
So, strategy is a great word. We all love to throw it around. It's kind of one of those wonderful buzzwords that exists in business. Let's go a little bit deeper. So let's talk about like businesses that are your clients. What size company do you usually work with at Skaled?
We've got a mix. We have that kind of growth stage organization that's maybe, scaling from, 50 to 200 people. And then we have big corporates that are trying to, bring in a more modern approach. Okay. So I would say probably, 60% of our clients are that rapid growth and 40% are much larger enterprises that are trying to innovate and bring in outside support to help them do that.
Well, good. Let's look at that growth-oriented company then. So what advice do you have? If you had to pick two things to share right now with executives of any ilk in a growth-oriented company, what should their salespeople be doing today?
You cannot scale if you don't have a process to scale. So whether that's around the way that you engage customers at the top of the funnel, the way that you sell to them, the way that you interact with them post-customer. So you cannot scale without some form of a repeatable way to do that, because your ramp times will be long. People won't get up to speed as fast as they need to, et cetera. And then your systems and technology won't do that. So document everything, because once it's documented, you can improve. And why I see organizations stutter for so long is they don't create a process that they can then track metrics around and track to then optimize over time. And candidly, that would be my like one piece of advice. The other piece maybe would be to think of your sales organization as a performance organization. And what I mean by that is you're like, well, Jake, what do you mean they produce sales? Well, not really. If you think about how often we actually optimize our outbound strategy, how often we actually optimize our sales cycle and sales process, it's like every 6 to 12 months. Mm-hmm. Like, what are you doing? You had 100 client conversations, and like, why aren't you improving your sales process in real time? That we've got to go steal from our marketing friends. They invest in optimization on an ongoing basis, but we're not doing that in sales. And so I think you need to you build your template and your playbooks, and then you have an always optimizing mindset, just like marketing does. And I think we've got to have those two things for a successful sales organization today.
Nice. So I call the show Making Waves at C-Level. What are you doing to shake things up in your company or in your industry?
Well, at the company level, I think we're starting to do a lot of the boring stuff, right? Which is like, and it's kind of like the anti-wave. Like, it's like we're making, I don't know, like platforms.
Making
or something.
Stillness, yeah. Making like the glass on like the glass on the lake in the morning.
There we go. But I think it's important to call out, meaning one of the things I think at a small company, you don't always appreciate that your people want, a path. They want to know, hey, here's where you're at today. Here's what the next step. So, we're literally just finished a process where every role in the company now has a scorecard that they can track to daily or weekly, depending on what their role is. Every person has a development plan. This is what your role is today. These are your responsibilities. Here's what the next step looks like. And what I realized over time is that, if people don't know their score, am I doing a good job? Then it causes all kinds of issues with having to, not micromanage, but you do have to give them more guidance, as opposed to like, no, you know what you're supposed to be tracking to in a daily, weekly, like, go make magic happen. Mm-hmm. So I think that's one of the things we're doing, is basically getting back to basics. And I think every owner, business owner, CEO, department head can do that today. And I'm telling you, the employee satisfaction, morale, excitement around this, it has been, absolutely phenomenal. In the industry, I think there's a few things that we're doing. One is this idea of the performance mindset I just talked about, that, companies are bringing us in to supercharge this, and I'll just give you an example. Imagine the same two companies, it's over 2 years. One company is looking at their lead generation and sales process every 2 to 4 weeks. The other's looking at it every 3 to 5 months. Where do you think those companies are going to be in 2 years? Mm-hmm. I've literally now optimized this, 400 or 500% more than another process. And so the work that we're doing, because of our knowledge, we've done hundreds of sales technology implementations. This idea of the people, process, and tech is really unique in our world. And so that, for me, I think is the big piece that we're bringing to the table now, is stop trying to hire jacks of all trades who can only do one thing. Treat your sales org like a performance agency, and we can be that partner for you.
Well, you bring up an interesting thing in that sort of trio you mentioned, and that is people. So I've spent the greater part of the last 15 years talking to people about sort of How do you connect with people, and why is it important on sort of this gadget crazy world we live in? And now, since the pandemic has hit, there's a lot of talk that we're not going to return to the office, and industry events will never happen again. Now, I'm not a futurist, and if you look at my stock portfolio, you'll know I'm wrong a lot. However, I don't think human connection and human-to-human engagement is going to sit on the sidelines forever. As soon as we get through this and it's safe to get back together, I think you're going to see a lot of people. Well, yeah, there'll be people who work from home. I think you're going to see a lot of companies who are now saying people can work from home forever are going to say, well, you got to come back to the office sometimes, because relationships are built through shared experience, and being on Zoom, even with video, it's not the same thing. So I actually don't think that the connecting and your network and how you relate to people over the long haul, I don't think it's going to take a big hit. But there's a lot of futurists who say that it is. And so what do you think about that people part, both inside the company and in a sales role? What do you think the future holds when it comes to connecting with people?
Well, this is going to be somewhat the new normal. I mean, and what I mean by that is, look, we were already, and let's just talk about sales, we were already moving inside, right? More and more field organizations are starting to build out much larger and big inside sales organizations. What this has done is accelerates the buyer's knowledge and understanding of how to have meaningful conversations digitally. And so I feel like in sales, all those road warriors, nope, don't need you anymore, or I need a lot less of you. Mm-hmm. Right? Because buyers are comfortable with this now, right? Buyers now, that the CHRO who's, 65 and, wasn't a big tech fan. Now she or he has had to do this. Right. Same thing for finance and IT and all this. So I think in sales, we're going to see not an end of outside sales by any means. And I agree with you. I think we do like that connection, but I think we've also now proven that people will buy things, and even more people than we ever thought, spending 50, 100 millions of dollars on a project without meeting somebody. That's unprecedented.
Sure.
So I do think that part of the human element is going to that face-to-faceness. Now, what I feel like the most important skills in sales now, though, and this might actually seem counterintuitive, are the people skills. That we've used this tech to train the human out of the machine. Like we've been like, just push buttons, just do this thing, just do that. And it's like, well, yeah, for certain things, but not for everything. Like you still need a human in the loop. And I feel like that's where a lot of organizations have got away from training on basic sales tactics, sales techniques, sales strategies. And I feel sorry. I mean, there's a lot of salespeople coming out right now that I think are going to struggle because they're not learning sales skills. They're not learning EQ. They're not learning this, interpersonal skills that you're talking about. They're learning how to push a button. And guess what robots are really good at? Pushing buttons and doing repeatable tasks. So, I feel like it's those interpersonal skills that are that are going to be really the most important element of being in sales. They always have been, but we've definitely gotten away from it.
So that's what I'm speaking about now to companies when I am speaking. I mean, obviously I'm not on large stages anymore or at sales meetings, but that's what I'm talking about is I can't prove which way the future is going to go. However, for the time being, we're like this, and elements of it, you're right on, elements of this are going to last forever. So therefore, if you're not being proactive, if you're not learning these skills, if you're not learning how to make human connection important, then you're going to be left behind. What I ask every company is, just think about it this way. What if your competitor is just a little better with human engagement during this crisis? Who's going to come out the other side, no matter what the world looks like? Who's going to come out better off? And you're right on. It's that human skills. If you don't have them, now it's more important than ever.
Yeah, it's like all of a sudden everyone remembered they have customers. It's like, we've been spending a lot more time talking to our customers. Like, dude, what have you been doing? Like, what do you mean you're spending a lot more time? Like, guess what? New business wasn't the end all be all after all, was it, Frank? Right? Like, I don't know what people were doing in the first place. Like this is what is going to be a great equalizer for certain companies, that if they can provide a better customer experience, because products are becoming so ubiquitous, right? Especially in B2B, like the amount of lookalike products in B2B, to where one of the key ways you can differentiate is customer experience. Mm-hmm. And guess what? If you don't forget the way that you feel now about retaining your customers, right? Keep this mindset that the customer experience is more important than, 0.1 efficiency gain.
Well, there's an old cliche, and I've quoted it a million times, and that is people do business with people they know, like, and trust. What's interesting in this world is it's a different path to getting people to know you, like you, and trust you.
That's right.
But the cliche holds true. That's
exactly right.
So, Jake, I've got a couple more questions for you. I'm enjoying this conversation. But first, I have to thank the sponsor of this episode. So this episode, it's brought to you by Podfly Productions. Podfly, they take the time and the headache out of creating your own podcast. They do all the heavy lifting and that pesky technical work so that you can focus on creating great content, growing your audience, and interviewing really cool people like Jake Dunlap. Hey, if you want to start a podcast, and I know that some of you do, jump over to podfly.net/cool things and check out the offer that they have for the listeners of this show. So, Jake, I used to call the show Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do. What's the coolest thing you're doing in business right now?
It goes back to what I said before. I think I'm doing all the uncool stuff right now. And that's actually the work that it takes to I think, build a phenomenal company is doing the foundations and doing the day-to-day boring stuff right every day. So, for me, I feel like what I'm doing that's cool and new is maybe not so cool and new, but it is about, I think I've got a renewed focus. And if you didn't have this before, you need to definitely have it with COVID of discipline and making sure that we have everybody in the organization set up for success. And going back to the fundamentals is never not cool, right? Like it's never not cool to make sure everyone feels like, they have a safe place. They know what's expected of them. They know what their career path looks like. And then I think on the client side, I think some of the work that we're doing around LinkedIn is the best work in the B2B space, period. The way that we're working with clients and advising them on how to leverage and harness the power of LinkedIn, there's nobody who's doing the work that we're doing around, modern sales. Because you said it, right? All these speaking engagements have gone away. They're gone. So guess what? LinkedIn is a chance for you with making one post to have a 5-minute speaking spot every day to your target audience. So, and if we've got sellers that are generating tens of meetings a month just on LinkedIn, and it's an amazing opportunity right now.
Well, and I think that LinkedIn is a great tool for that. And one of the things that's interesting is I have some friends who, when they post something on LinkedIn, they get like 10,000 views. They're like, they have all this huge following and all this stuff. And I spend a lot of time looking at them going, oh, I wish, I hope, I dream. And then I realized that, if I post like 3 times a week or whatever, I average about 1,000 to 2,000 views, and the view can be somebody saw it versus somebody engaged. But if I was still out there working as a speaker, and I still am, but if the world was having live events, and 3 times a week I could get in front of 1,000 people, that would be freaking awesome. Yeah. And so while it's not the same, I have to look at it that even if 100 people see it, all you need is that one person who says, oh, I need to engage and be part of what they're doing. So I think you're right. It's an important tool, but you got to use it right, and you've got to use it. A lot of people just have a LinkedIn profile and they never post. So let's quickly talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. Again, it's a very simple moniker. It's add, post, and engage, right? That with tools like Sales Navigator, step one is most people need to grow their network, because their network today is, previous coworkers and current coworkers, not necessarily even like their target audience or industry thought leaders.
Right.
So you need to make sure that you're adding people. And in Sales Navigator, you can add 82 people in 12 minutes. So there's no excuse. Spend time, grow your network, right? More is better. Right. It's like those people that the worst are the people. I curate my network. Why? It's so stupid. Like, why wouldn't you want every single, like if you say you're selling to customer success, why wouldn't you want to be connected with every single customer success leader? There is zero downside. So then when you post a comment on the future of CS, they all see it. Mm-hmm. So you got to increase your network size. The second thing is you got to post content that's industry thought leadership. It's not about me, right? I run a company. I post on LinkedIn 2 to 3 times a day. It's that important to my business. We generate millions of dollars of organic leads from LinkedIn. And I post content. I never talk about my company. Very, very, I shouldn't say never, but like 1 in 12 posts, maybe less than that. My team wants me to do it more. You got to add value. You have to talk. You have to be willing to put yourself out there a little bit. right? And then the next is engage. You need to make sure you engage with your audience, or at least, engage with, other industry thought leaders. But and we've got reps that are doing this too, and they are just crushing it because it's so simple.
And it's important to comment on other people's stuff too, right? That's the thing I find a lot of people, I have a little bit different philosophy. I fall into a little bit more curated, although if it's somebody who I would do business with, I'll connect with them. I tend not to link to a pet shop owner in Topeka because I try to control it a little bit. I used to have a rule, coffee, meal, or beer rule, where I didn't connect to people on LinkedIn unless I had met them. Now it's coffee, meal, beer, or real reason to be connected. But what I find with a lot of people is they'll post a lot, whether providing good value or just, hey, look at my company, but they'll never comment on anyone else's posts. They somehow think that if they give someone else credit, they're taking away. I believe if you give someone credit and say, hey, Jake, that was a great post. I really liked what you said about, sales strategy. I think that suddenly makes you more valuable to your network and those people you comment on.
Because LinkedIn shows you what people like and comment on.
Right.
It's the only site that does that. So I can see every single thing that you, Tom, liked and commented on for forever. And that's one thing. Or to disagree with people too. Like LinkedIn right now to me is too soft. Too many people I agree. Oh, that's a great, dude, there are some bad ideas out there, guys. Bad, not good. And so I feel like LinkedIn needs a little more discord too. So I'm all for having a dissenting opinion just as much as having a positive comment as well too.
Well, I think it's interesting. Early on in this conversation, you said something that in our society and business, sales has gotten lazy. And I may title this episode, Sales Has Gotten Lazy, because I think what you're talking about involves putting in work, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's outbound calls, with everything you talked about around strategy. There's no magic fairy dust when it comes to sales, right?
I wish there was. I would tell you if there was, right? I would say hey, just do this thing and it works 100% of the time. But the key is that people are also not working what's that Steve Jobs, right? I find a lazy person to do a hard job because I know they'll find the easiest way to do it. I think a lot of people are working too hard too. They're not looking for shortcuts. They're not looking to break things. They're not looking for creative solutions. They're just, execute mode. And so I feel like there's a certain amount of laziness that's a good laziness. But right now I feel like there's not enough people breaking machines as opposed to being a cog in one. And the machines aren't working either, right? I can't remember the stat, but it's something like 60 or 70% of people are hitting quota right now. The lead gen reps, only 50% or something are hitting quota. So it's guys, it's not working. It's already, whether it's they need to be lazy because they need to get more creative or they need to work harder to compensate. But it's got to be one or the other. It can't just be continuing to push the buttons and, read the message.
So Jake, as you look out into the business world, whether it's small entrepreneurial businesses or large businesses, who do you look at as a business leader, C-level executive or entrepreneur, where you say, wow, they're the ones making waves? Who do you admire?
Yeah, I'll go with Gary Vaynerchuk. I think what he's done with VaynerMedia, and his business is continuing to grow. I think is probably one of the more. I think when you think true maverick in sales and B2B in particular, I think what he's done is built a content engine. He's developed an entirely new play. Whereas in B2B, we went so far toward the leads route. It's like marketing's job is to generate leads, right? MQLs, SQLs, insert acronym, right? And I think what Gary does is Gary says, look, let's focus on brand. Let's focus on being cool, being interesting to work with, having provocative ideas, and letting, that kind of, it's like an older school mentality, but it always happens, right, Tom? It's like what is old becomes new again.
Right.
That I feel like we've engineered toward marketing only cares about, with my blinders on, leads, as opposed to understanding the importance of brand. And that's what I really admire about what Gary's doing.
Nice. I actually met him, drove him around in my car in Austin before he was famous. So he was, he was getting famous because he had been asked to come and speak. He was still very deep. Wine library was still his main thing. There was no VaynerMedia yet. He was just becoming a speaker. He didn't even know what to charge. He was like, oh, what do you got? Okay. I think we got him for $7,000 plus airfare. which of course you couldn't do now. And my job was to pick him up at the airport, get him to his hotel, then later in the day, pick him up and drive him around. And I always remember on the way back to his hotel, he hadn't talked to me very much. He'd been on his phone, and it was late on his way back to his hotel. And so I had a second, and I just said, hey, if you had Gary Vaynerchuk in your car, what would you ask him? And I remember he lit up like a Christmas tree. He was like, that is a great question. And then 20 minutes back to his hotel, we had a great talk. So
love it.
That's my claim.
Love it. Yeah. That's the kind of question he would love.
Yeah. That's my claim to fame of crossing paths with Gary Vaynerchuk. That was like 12, 14 years ago, but
Wow.
So if somebody listened to this and they've got a company and they need to be scaled, how do people find you?
I mean, look, as I mentioned, LinkedIn, I'm quite active. It's just type in Jake Dunlap on the first result. You can always email me, Jake@Skaled, Skaled. And I think, look, come to the website, check out what we're doing, reach out. I'm happy to have a conversation with any, or connect you with the team on any sales, marketing related questions. Things are changing rapidly. And, if you ever need someone to gut check, we work with hundreds of companies in any given year, best practices, we're happy to do it. So get at me, social media, email, whatever's best for you.
Nice. Well, Jake, thank you for joining us here on Making Waves at Sea Level. Any final words of advice? Take action.
Stop thinking about what to do. Stop thinking about more ideas and just do one thing extremely well. No more ideas. Right? Just start doing.
Nice. I like that. Well, again, thank you for being here. And thank you very much to everybody who tuned in and listened. I say it with every one of these episodes. If it wasn't for the audience, why would we do the podcast? So if you like the show, do me that favor. Go ahead and rank and review it on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast love. But more importantly, go tell a friend, either directly or through social media. When I run across people who listen to this show, and oddly, I run across people like in weird places. And if I don't know them, I say, how did you discover my show? Always the answer is someone I know told me to listen. So tell somebody.
Go out, share with your network.
That's right. Exactly.
Leave a review.
Thank you. That's right. Listen, Jake Dunlap is smart. Do what he says. We're going to be back in a couple of days with somebody just as cool as Jake Dunlap. And you're thinking, Tom, how will you find somebody as cool?
It's going to be tough.
But we do it every single time. In the meantime, go out there, make some waves, flex those entrepreneurial muscles, and make sure that your career ladder is against the right wall, because I spent a lot of time climbing that career ladder and it was in the wrong place. But while you're out there, have some fun. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Making Waves at Sea Level podcast. Without your listening to these in-depth conversations, there would be no show. Connect with Tom at tomsinger.com and follow him on Twitter and Instagram at tomsinger.